Hello everyone. In this video I want to talk about Final Fantasy 15. I don't want to talk about the main storyline of it, but I want to talk about the post-game content available. We've heard a lot about the main story of the game, and we've heard that it isn't large in itself, with a lot of people being able to complete the game within 20 hours or so. And when a lot of other people have reviewed the game, and it seems that the game has a lot of content removed. Removed content or rushed content, it might be released later on as downloadable content, some of which will be free as announced by Square Enix, and some of it you might have to pay for later. But otherwise, I actually just want to do a quick review regarding the post-game content after the storyline of the game is finished. And depending on how many optional tasks you complete, this game story can be done in maybe about 20 hours, meaning that it's actually one of the faster Final Fantasy games. But after you beat the game, how much content is there exactly? That's what I seek to answer. So surprisingly, there's actually a lot of post-game content, though a lot of it can get repetitive. Kind of like how there are many hunts available within Final Fantasy 15, a lot of them get very repetitive, with enemies or mini-bosses that are just reskinned enemies from the main storyline of the game being recycled. One of the things you can do in the game after the storyline is assaulting some of the optional bases and forts. This will actually take some time, and it can be done before the ending of the game. You can actually use your pet to teleport away in time from the ending area of the game back into the past. So some of these tasks can actually be finished before you actually get to the credits of the game. When you complete the optional bases and forts, you can actually get the ingredients required to customize your vehicle into a flying vehicle. The flying vehicle actually makes traveling across the map very simple and fast, but it can only be manually controlled. You cannot use the computer's character to control it. Unfortunately, that means that you have to land it manually, and sometimes that can be tricky due to the poor way the controls were programmed. It's not about paying a fee with the in-game money if you crash it. You'll actually get a game over screen if you crash your vehicle while trying to land it. The problem here is that the game doesn't autosave that often. This game will never autosave inside of a dungeon, and you can't choose to manually save in a dungeon either. I get the mentality of that because they don't want players to get stuck into a situation they can't win. But this is also bad because if you go through a dungeon that takes 2 hours, fly your car, and then you'll be screwed. You won't be able to save while you're in midair, and that actually happened to me before, and I was laughing when I figured it out. I went through a very long dungeon, and I ended up crashing the vehicle when I was trying to land. I got wrecked pretty bad, and then I had to repeat all of it because of the poorly handled saving system. Anyways, there's a lot of hunts that unlock when you complete the game. The most famous one is the Adamantoise hunt, where you actually fight a giant mountain that's also a turtle. That's not necessarily the most fun fight in the game, because you don't take too much damage. Rather, that post-game fight is more about constantly hitting an enemy with a massive amount of health. It's not the most fun experience, really. But there's other legendary hunts that you can pursue. Again, they're reskinned enemies from the main game, but some of these are actually pretty fun to fight, and they do take a bit of preparation. These hunts are the strongest enemies of their kind. There's a very difficult ninja enemy that actually has a unique hunt associated with it, and that's a lot of fun. You don't even need to max out your stats because sometimes you can actually traverse the massive world and you can get good equipment and you can actually spend time crafting some of the best spells the game has to offer. There's also, and this actually impressed me a lot, there's a very unique puzzle dungeon. It's very tough to describe, but it's a dungeon that has no combat at all. It's actually a series of platforming puzzles where you'll have to solve puzzles. Well, you have to do a bit of tricky maneuvers if you want to get through it. It suspends some of the rules in the game, like gravity, for example. I actually enjoyed going through these puzzles more than playing the game itself. It's been many years since I've played a good platformer, and I was actually quite surprised when they made it. It actually felt like a bunch of unique content that I couldn't find elsewhere within the game. It actually seems like they put a lot of effort into that dungeon compared to some of the other dungeons in the post-game content. There's other post-game dungeons called the Locked Door dungeons where you actually revisit old dungeons, and you unlock a door that you get a key for when you beat the game. But the problem with that is that you go into procedurally generated underground rooms, and you'll be defeating enemies until you defeat the boss of the dungeon. The thing is, it's not really unique, and it gets repetitive very quickly. There's even one of these dungeons that will go on for 100 floors, but at that point, it's unfortunate because the content becomes a recycled mess. When everything is said and done, there definitely are at least several unique optional dungeons. But sometimes revisiting the same old dungeons and repeating them with the same combat system gets boring. I actually liked having a few hunts, like in Final Fantasy XII. There were only a few hunts, but they each felt unique, and they were each different challenge that you had to overcome. And one of my big issues is that when you hunt down all of these big monsters, you have to go through, even if you use fast travel, you have to go through a loading screen that will take several minutes, and it gets old very quickly. In the end, I think that Final Fantasy 15 actually does a pretty good job with the post-game content. Although a lot of it is recycled and a lot of it is for the more hardcore audience, I think that compared to the other games, it actually has a good amount. You can actually spend quite a lot of time pursuing the optional content. The older games would also have, maybe only one or two post-game superbosses to defeat, and I feel like this game actually brings several to the table instead of just one or two. Although a lot of the content in the main storyline has been rushed, if you like the gameplay, you can still have many hours of fun with this post-game content. It's not for everyone though, and definitely a lot of people will find it repetitive very quickly. That puzzle dungeon, I've never seen anything like that done in a JRPG before, and I don't think I ever will again. And to me, that was a lot of fun just by itself. So although the story might not be comparable to the other Final Fantasy games, and they might not have the best optional content, it definitely does have a bunch of unique aspects to it, and I do think that it's worth playing through. It's really a lot of fun. It gets addicting quickly to get the new equipment and spells and leveling up your characters. It gets addicting very quickly. Thanks for watching the video. We have complete game playthroughs in 1080p quality for all of the newest video game releases. Thank you.